Hello and welcome to another installment in the ACO How-To video series. Today's topic is how to set up your Waterloo email through Mozilla Thunderbird. So by the end of this video, you'll learn all the necessary steps needed to successfully connect through Thunderbird to your Waterloo email. So without further ado, let's begin. So to connect to your Waterloo email through Thunderbird, you have to start by clicking on the Tools menu at the top of the page. From there, click Account Settings. You'll now be brought to a window appropriately called Account Settings. Notice the button down on the bottom left called Add Account. Let's click it now. From here, we have multiple different options that we can choose from to set up an account. Let's leave the default email account selected and then click Next. So now you're brought to an area where you're setting up your account. The first thing you have to do is type in your name. It's recommended that you type in your full name because this name will appear on all the emails that you send out to people. So let me show you. So my name is Trevor, so I'll simply type in my first name and my last name as well. Once you've typed in your name, select this email address box and type in your full email address. Now your full email address isn't simply your user ID at uWaterloo.ca. It's your user ID at the server.uWaterloo.ca. So for example, if you have an Art Services account, it'll be your user ID at artservices.uWaterloo.ca. Or if you have a Mail Services account, it can be your user ID at mailservices.uWaterloo.ca. Since I have an Art Services account, I'm going to type in my ID at the server, which is artservices.uWaterloo.ca. So when you've entered your name and your email address, click Next. From here, you're going to have to choose the type of servers you're using for your Waterloo email. Let me explain. First, between the two radio buttons, choose IMAP. Now you have to type in the incoming server. The incoming server is simply the Waterloo email server you're using at uWaterloo.ca. So if you're using Art Services, the incoming and outgoing server will be artservices.uWaterloo.ca and finally mailservices.uWaterloo.ca. As I previously mentioned, I'm using an Art Services account. So for the incoming server, I'm going to type artservices.uWaterloo.ca. And if you're using the Mail Services, you just simply replace the Art Services with Mail Services. Now the outgoing server is going to be the exact same as the incoming server. So we can simply copy and paste the incoming server into the outgoing server. When you've entered both the incoming and outgoing server and chosen IMAP as the server you're using, click Next. Now the incoming username is a user ID that you sign into through the internet to access your Waterloo mail. Thunderbird will automatically pull out the user ID for you. If it's not the same user ID that you use to sign into your Waterloo email, change that now. Since mine's the same, I'm going to click Next. Now the account name is simply the name you want Thunderbird to refer to your email as. Generally, it's a good idea to keep the default account name there, but if you want to change it, feel free to do so. I don't want to change it, so I'm simply going to click Next. Now Thunderbird will congratulate us on setting up our account and show us all the settings we chose. Look through this for a second. If anything's wrong, I'd recommend going back and changing it, but since I know everything is correct, I'm going to click Finish. Perfect. But we have one more thing to do. Thunderbird jumped ahead. We still have to set up the incoming and outgoing server ports and encryptions. Let me explain what that is next. So to complete our setup of our Waterloo email through Thunderbird, we have to now add the incoming server ports and encryptions as well as the outgoing server ports and encryptions for the email address we're using. Let's start by setting up the incoming server port encryptions first. To do that, click on the Server Settings option under your email address. You'll now see the server name, which we already typed in, and this port here. This is where we're going to set the port number for the particular email server we're using. Down here you'll also see this Use Secure setting here. This is where we're going to set the encryption type. So before I do that, each email server has a different port number and a different encryption type. So if you're using Art Services, the incoming port number is going to be 993 and its encryption type is going to be SSL. Now if you're using Mail Services, the incoming port number is 143 or 993 and its encryption type is TLS. Now since I've set up an Art Services account through Thunderbird, I want to set my port number to 993, and as I mentioned, the encryption type should be set as SSL. Now if you're using Mail Services, you'd set those particular port numbers and encryption types for the incoming server the exact same way. So we set up our incoming server port number and encryption type. Now we have to set up the outgoing port number and encryption type as well. To do that, we're going to click on Outgoing Server. From here, we're going to click the Edit button. You'll now see a very similar area as when we were setting up the incoming server. As with the incoming server ports and encryption types, they differ across all different mail providers. So for Art Services, the outgoing port number is 587 and you set the encryption type to TLS. For Mail Services, the outgoing port number is 587 or 465 and its outgoing encryption is TLS. As I've mentioned numerous times throughout this video, I'm using an Art Services account, so I want to use the port number and encryption type that I just mentioned for Art Services. So to do that, I'm going to enter in the appropriate number in this port text box, which is 587, and down in this Use Secure connection, I'm going to choose the TLS radio button. And as before, if you're using Mail Services, you'll just simply follow the exact same steps, except type in the appropriate port number and choose the appropriate encryption type depending on the mail provider you're using. When you've successfully entered and chosen the encryption type, click OK. So we're finally ready to access our Waterloo email through Thunderbird. Let's click OK to get out of this dialog box and see if we did OK. So I'm going to click OK. And now if you click on the inbox under your email address, all your emails should appear. Now this is one thing that immediately pops up before you can access your email. If you don't want this to pop up frequently, click the checkbox beside Use Password Manager to remember this password and type in your password. So this will only prompt once and you should be good to go. Now this other message will appear basically saying every single time you sign into Thunderbird by typing in that password, it'll automatically show your emails. Since we're okay with that, I'm going to click OK. And it's just loading up all my emails. If you'll notice this working bar down here, and my email should appear in one moment. And it appeared. There you have it. That's how to set up your Waterloo email through Thunderbird. Congratulations! I thank you for watching another installment in the ACO How-To video series. I look forward to talking to you next time. Thanks. Bye.